The rain began long before the ferry reached the coast. Not the soft kind that brushed harmlessly against windows or disappeared into the sea mist. This rain came with intent. It slammed against the deck rails like fists. The sky above Veridon looked bruised purple and black, thunder rolling somewhere far beyond the cliffs like a warning no one wanted to hear. At the rear of the ferry, Alina Rousseau stood motionless beneath the hood of her charcoal coat, one gloved hand resting against the cold railing as the wind whipped strands of auburn hair across her face. 10 years. 10 years since she had last seen the crooked lighthouse. 10 years since she had heard the church bells that carried over the harbor every evening. 10 years since Veridon had destroyed her life. The town looked smaller now. Or maybe she had simply grown harder. Behind her, passengers dragged luggage across the wet deck while a crying child complained loudly about the storm. A heavy-set fisherman muttered prayers under his breath each time lightning flashed. Nobody spoke to Alina. Nobody ever did when they recognized her. Even now. Even after all this time. A man in a wool cap glanced at her face twice before quietly whispering something to his wife. The woman immediately looked away. Alina almost laughed. Veridon's favorite pastime had always been pretending innocence while feeding on scandal. The ferry horn echoed through the harbor. Ahead, the coastal town emerged slowly through the rain. Ancient stone buildings climbed the cliffs in uneven layers. Warm orange lights flickered behind windows. Fishing boats rocked violently against wooden docks. Above it all stood the Belmare lighthouse. Tall. Silent. Watching. The sight of it tightened something in her chest. Her mother used to say the lighthouse remembered everything. Alina had once believed that was poetry. Now she wondered if it had been a warning. The ferry docked with a violent scrape. Passengers hurried off first. Alina remained where she was. Only when the deck emptied did she finally reach for her suitcase. The moment her boots touched the dock, the memories hit harder than the rain. 17 years old. Running through these same streets. People shouting. Police lights. Her mother screaming her name from the courthouse steps. Julien. The thought came suddenly. Sharp. Dangerous. She immediately buried it. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. You still walk like you're prepared to stab somebody. Alina turned. A man leaned against a black sedan parked beside the harbor warehouse. Marc Virel. Older now. Broader shoulders. Grey beginning to creep into his beard. But still wearing the same crooked smirk that used to get him punched in bars. He opened his arms dramatically. Well, he said, this is awkward. Despite herself, Alina smiled faintly. You're alive. Disappointing, I know. He stepped forward and hugged her briefly. The warmth of human familiarity after years away nearly caught her off guard. Marc pulled back. You took your time coming home. I wasn't aware Veridon missed me. Oh, they didn't. He grabbed her suitcase before she could protest. But they definitely talked about you. Of course they did. Marc opened the car door. Come on. Before somebody starts a rumor that you're here to poison the mayor. Alina slid into the passenger seat. That rumor already exists. Marc started the engine. It's Veridon. Give it 15 minutes. The car rolled through narrow cobblestone streets slick with rain. Alina stared quietly through the window. Nothing had changed. The bakery with faded blue shutters. The tiny bookstore squeezed between two taverns. The clock tower near St. Celine Cathedral. Everything looked frozen in time. Except the people. The people looked tired. Nervous. Everywhere she looked, conversation stopped when pedestrians noticed her. A woman exiting a flower shop nearly dropped her bouquet. Two elderly men outside a cafe stared openly. Marc noticed. They are trying to decide whether seeing you means another disaster is coming. And honestly? He shrugged. They might be right. Alina exhaled slowly. Tell me how she died. The humor disappeared from Mark's face. He tightened both hands on the wheel. They found her near the Western Cliffs 3 nights ago. An accident? That's what the police said. And what do you think? Mark was quiet for several seconds. Finally he answered. I think your mother made a lot of dangerous enemies. Lightning flashed outside. Alina stared ahead. Her mother. Celeste Rousseau. The woman who spent half her life fighting the corruption of Veridon's elite while simultaneously drowning herself in secrets. Their relationship had collapsed years ago. The final argument still haunted Alina. You think leaving makes you free? Her mother had shouted those words across the kitchen. Veridon never lets people leave. At the time, Alina believed it was manipulation. Now she wasn't so sure. Mark cleared his throat. There's something else. That sentence never leads anywhere good. Your mother left instructions. Alina turned toward him. She knew she was going to die. I don't know. Mark reached into his jacket and handed her a sealed envelope. Written across the front in elegant handwriting were 3 words. For Alina only. Her chest tightened. The handwriting was unmistakable. She stared at the envelope but didn't open it. Later, she whispered. Mark nodded. The car climbed higher into the hills overlooking the harbor. Then Alina saw the mansion. Rousseau House. Large. Dark. Ancient. Its towering windows reflected flashes of lightning while ivy crawled across stone walls like veins. Every light inside was off except one. The study. Alina's stomach twisted. She used to sit beneath that window while her mother worked late into the night. Writing. Investigating. Hiding things. Mark parked. Rain hammered the windshield. You don't have to stay there tonight, he said carefully. I do. Alina. I left once already. Mark studied her face before nodding. Call me if anything feels wrong. That's vague. In this town, vague usually means dangerous. He helped carry her suitcase inside. The house smelled exactly the same. Old books. Sea salt. Firewood. And faintly beneath it all, lavender. Her mother's perfume. Alina froze near the entrance. Memories rushed through her like icy water. Christmas dinners. Arguments. Julien laughing beside the fireplace. Her father's portrait watching silently from the staircase wall. Mark switched on a lamp. Dust floated through the warm amber light. She kept the place mostly untouched. Alina slowly removed her gloves. She thought I'd come back. She hoped. That felt worse somehow. Mark checked his watch. The funeral starts tomorrow at noon. I know. The entire council will be there. Wonderful. And Julien. Silence. Mark immediately regretted mentioning him. But Alina's expression remained controlled. Only her eyes changed. Just slightly. He's engaged now, Mark added carefully. I heard. To Camille Duval. The mayor's daughter. Yes, I remember the newspaper headlines. Mark sighed. You okay? No. At least she answered honestly. Mark gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze before heading toward the door. I'll come by tomorrow morning. When he left, the mansion became unbearably quiet. The storm outside rattled the windows. Alina stood alone in the entrance hall for a long moment before finally walking deeper into the house. Every room carried ghosts. She paused beside the grand piano. Julien used to play badly on purpose just to annoy her. She remembered throwing sheet music at him while he grinned like an idiot. The memory almost made her smile. Almost. She moved toward the study. The door creaked open. Inside, stacks of documents covered the desk. Newspaper clippings. Old photographs. Folders tied with red string. Her mother had clearly been investigating something. Again. Alina approached slowly. Then she noticed the tape recorder. An old cassette sat inside. A sticky note attached to it read, "If anything happens to me, listen carefully." Alina stared at the machine. Thunder shook the windows. She pressed play. Static crackled. Then her mother's voice filled the room. Tired. Uneasy. "Alina, if you're hearing this, then I was right to be afraid." Alina's pulse quickened. There are people in Veridon who would kill to protect what happened 23 years ago. A pause. Paper rustled somewhere on the recording. "You cannot trust the council. Especially not Mayor Duval." Alina frowned. "The society still exists." Static interrupted the tape. Then footsteps sounded in the recording. Her mother's breathing changed. Nervous. "If they discover the letters, they'll..." The tape abruptly cut off. Silence. Alina replayed the end twice. Nothing. The recording simply stopped. She looked around the study. Letters. What letters? The wind outside howled violently. Then somewhere upstairs. A loud crash. Alina spun toward the hallway. Every instinct sharpened instantly. Another noise. Footsteps. Someone was inside the house. Alina grabbed the heavy brass candle holder from the desk. The footsteps moved across the upper floor. Slow. Careful. Not accidental. Rain battered the windows as she climbed the staircase silently. Her breathing stayed controlled. Years away from Veridon had changed her. The frightened girl who once ran from conflict no longer existed. Another sound. The attic hallway. Alina tightened her grip on the candle holder. The corridor above was dark except for brief flashes of lightning. She moved carefully. Then suddenly, a shadow darted across the hall. Alina lunged forward. The figure slammed into a side door. She raised the candle holder. Wait. The voice startled her enough to stop. A teenage boy stood frozen with both hands raised. Thin. Dark curls. Terrified expression. He couldn't have been older than 16. Alina stared. Who are you? The boy swallowed hard. I wasn't stealing. That wasn't my question. I just needed somewhere dry. You broke into a mansion during a storm because you needed shelter. Yes? Even he sounded unconvinced. Alina narrowed her eyes. You have 5 seconds before I call the police. The boy panicked. No, no, please. He reached into his jacket. Alina immediately raised the candle holder again. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a photograph. He handed it toward her carefully. Alina took it. The blood drained from her face. The photograph showed her mother, standing beside a younger unknown man. And between them, a small child. The same boy standing before her now. What is this? Alina whispered. The boy looked terrified. My name is Lucien. Lightning illuminated the hallway. I think. His voice trembled. I think your mother was hiding me. Veridon loved funerals. Not because the town respected the dead. Because grief gave people permission to gossip openly. By noon the next day, St. Celine Cathedral overflowed with black umbrellas, expensive coats, and carefully whispered conversations. Rainwater dripped from marble steps while bells echoed across the harbor. Alina stood near the entrance beneath the cathedral archway, watching the town watch her. Nobody approached directly, but everyone stared. Council members, business owners, old family acquaintances. Women who once smiled at her mother during charity dinners now looked away like guilty conspirators. Beside her, Mark adjusted his tie. "You look like you're attending an execution." "Maybe I am. That's the spirit." Alina glanced toward the back pews. Hidden beneath a dark hood sat Lucien. The boy had refused to leave the mansion. After hours of questioning, Alina still knew almost nothing about him. Only fragments. Her mother had apparently paid for his boarding school under a false name. Someone had recently tried to kill him. And he possessed several photographs linking him directly to Celeste Rousseau. Alina didn't know whether to trust him. But fear in people's eyes was difficult to fake. Especially his. The cathedral doors opened wider. A hush swept through the crowd. Mayor Henri Duval entered first. Tall. Silver-haired. Perfectly composed. His public smile looked practiced enough to belong on campaign posters. Beside him walked his daughter Camille. Elegant cream-colored coat. Pearl earrings. Cold blue eyes. And beside her, Julien Marche. Alina forgot how to breathe. 10 years vanished instantly. He looked older. Stronger. The softness she remembered had been replaced by restraint. But his eyes remained exactly the same. Storm gray. Observant. Dangerous when emotional. Julien stopped walking the moment he saw her. Camille noticed immediately. Of course she did. Alina hated herself for caring. Mark quietly muttered, "Well, there's the emotional disaster I ordered." Alina elbowed him. Julien finally approached. Every conversation inside the cathedral seemed to die at once. Veridon adored drama. And the return of Alina Rousseau standing face to face with Julien Marche after 10 years was better than theatre. Julien stopped a few feet away. For several seconds neither spoke. Then he said softly, "You came back." Alina folded her arms. "My mother died." "That's not really an answer. It's the only one you're getting." A flicker of hurt crossed his face. Camille stepped forward elegantly. "Alina Rousseau." Her smile carried no warmth. "It's been a long time. Not long enough for this town to improve its manners apparently." Mark nearly choked trying not to laugh. Camille ignored him. "We were very sorry to hear about your mother." Alina looked directly at Mayor Duval. "Were you?" The mayor's smile never changed. Celeste was passionate. "That's a diplomatic way to say inconvenient." Mark whispered, "Please wait until after the funeral before starting a war." Julien's mouth twitched slightly. He always did appreciate reckless honesty. A priest interrupted before tensions could rise further. Everyone moved inside. Throughout the ceremony, Alina felt Julien watching her. Not constantly, but enough. Each time their eyes met, memories surfaced. Sneaking onto fishing boats at 16. Dancing during summer festivals. Kissing beneath the lighthouse after storms. Then the betrayal. The screaming. The night she left. Father Benoit's voice echoed through the cathedral while rain hammered stained glass windows. Celeste Rousseau devoted her life to uncovering truth. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Interesting. After the service, mourners gathered outside. The storm had weakened into grey drizzle. People approached Alina one by one offering rehearsed condolences. She endured it politely until an elderly woman grabbed her wrist suddenly. "Leave this town." Alina blinked. The woman's hands shook violently. "They killed your mother." Before Alina could respond, the woman's son hurried over. "Mother?" He pulled her away quickly. The old woman kept staring back, terrified. Mark noticed. That's the third person this morning who looks like they've seen a ghost. Maybe they have. Nearby, Lucien quietly observed everything from beneath his hood. Then suddenly his expression changed. Fear. Sharp. Immediate. Alina followed his gaze. A man stood across the street near a black car. Tall. Scar over one eyebrow. Watching Lucien directly. The moment Alina noticed him, the man entered the car and drove away. Lucien's breathing quickened. That's him. Who? The man who searched my dorm room. Mark cursed under his breath. Wonderful. Murderous stalkers. Exactly what this week needed. Alina's instincts sharpened. Get back to the car. Lucien obeyed immediately. Julien approached before she could follow. You're hiding something. Alina stared at him. You always could tell. And you always answered questions with sarcasm. That skill has improved with age. Julien glanced toward Lucien. Who's the kid? None of your business. That means it's definitely my business. Alina exhaled sharply. This town hasn't changed you nearly enough. And leaving didn't make you less stubborn. For one dangerous second, the old chemistry returned. Easy. Natural. Then Camille called Julien's name from the cathedral steps. Reality returned instantly. Julien looked frustrated. I need to talk to you. No, you need to survive your engagement party without emotionally collapsing. That's unfair. So was disappearing while your father testified against mine. The words landed like a knife. Julien froze. Alina immediately regretted saying it. But pride refused to let her apologize. Julien's voice lowered. You think I had control over that? You stood there and watched. I was 19, Alina. And I lost everything. Silence stretched painfully between them. Finally Julien stepped back. You don't know the whole story. Then maybe 10 years ago would have been a fantastic time to explain it. She walked away before he could answer. Mark followed while muttering. You two flirt like people preparing for battle. Shut up, Mark. I'm just saying normal ex-lovers usually don't look seconds away from homicide. Behind them, Julien watched Alina leave. Camille quietly appeared beside him. You still love her? Julien didn't answer. That was answer enough. Camille's jaw tightened. Across the harbor, thunder rolled once more. And high above Veridon, inside the Belmare lighthouse, someone unseen watched the funeral through binoculars. Then slowly closed the curtains. The hidden compartment was discovered entirely by accident. That evening, Alina returned to the mansion exhausted. Lucien sat nervously in the kitchen eating soup while Mark searched old police reports beside the fireplace. The atmosphere felt strange. Like several storms waiting to collide. Alina poured herself coffee. Tell me again exactly what my mother said to you. Lucien hesitated. She called me 2 nights before she died. And? She sounded scared. Mark looked up. That's specific. Lucien frowned. She told me if anything happened, I should find you. Why me? She said you were the only person stubborn enough not to quit. Mark snorted. That actually sounds like Celeste. Alina leaned against the counter. What exactly are you hiding? Lucien looked down. I don't know everything. That's not reassuring. I only know she believed powerful people were covering up murders. The room went quiet. Mark slowly closed the folder in front of him. Murders? Lucien nodded. She kept talking about something called the Crimson Circle. The name hit Alina instantly. A memory. Years ago she overheard her mother arguing with someone on the phone. "You people destroyed lives." She remembered that sentence clearly now. At the time she thought it was political nonsense. Now her pulse quickened. Mark rubbed his forehead. "I hate secret societies already." A loud crack suddenly echoed upstairs. Everyone froze. Lucien nearly dropped his spoon. Mark grabbed the fireplace poker. Alina rolled her eyes. "That's either an assassin or this house falling apart." Comforting options. They moved upstairs carefully. The noise came from her mother's bedroom. A bookshelf had partially collapsed against the wall. Old books scattered everywhere. Mark lowered the poker. "Okay. Good news. Not murder." Alina stepped closer. One book still protruded strangely from the shelf. She pulled it. Click. Part of the wall shifted open. All three stared silently. "Well," Mark said finally, "that's incredibly suspicious." Inside the hidden compartment sat dozens of envelopes tied together with scarlet ribbon. And beneath them, a revolver. Lucien backed away nervously. Alina carefully lifted the letters. Each envelope carried names. Council members. Judges. Police chiefs. Mayor Henri Duval. Mark's expression darkened. "Your mother wasn't collecting gossip." "No." Alina opened one envelope. Inside were photographs. Secret meetings. Money exchanges. Several politicians entering an abandoned warehouse at night. Another photo showed Mayor Duval beside a masked gathering. People wearing crimson ceremonial robes. Lucien whispered. "The Crimson Circle." Alina's stomach tightened. One final photograph rested at the bottom. It showed a much younger Celeste Rousseau, standing beside another woman. They looked almost identical. Mark frowned. "Who's that?" Alina stared. "I don't know." Then she turned the photograph over. Written on the back were 5 words. "The truth survived the fire." Before anyone could speak, headlights flashed outside the mansion. Mark moved toward the window. A black sedan parked near the gate. 2 men stepped out. One carried something metallic. Mark cursed. "That's definitely murder this time." Alina immediately grabbed the revolver. Lucien's eyes widened. "You know how to use that." "I grew up in Veridon." The front door slammed downstairs. Someone had broken in. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house. Mark whispered urgently. "Backstairs. Now." They hurried toward the rear corridor just as voices filled the lower floor. "Search everything." Alina led them through narrow servant hallways she hadn't used since childhood. The mansion's old architecture suddenly became useful. They reached the back exit. Rain poured heavily again. Mark peeked outside. Coast clear. A gunshot exploded through the hallway behind them. Wood shattered near the door frame. Lucien shouted. "Run!" They bolted into the storm. Another gunshot echoed. Alina grabbed Lucien's arm while Mark led them toward the cliff road. Wind howled violently. The attackers pursued them through the darkness. "Left!" Mark yelled. They cut between narrow stone alleys. Veridon's twisting streets became a maze of rain and shadows. A black SUV suddenly skidded around the corner ahead. Its headlights blinded them. Alina raised the revolver instinctively. Then the driver's door opened. "Julien. Get in." Mark didn't hesitate. They threw themselves into the vehicle as armed men emerged behind them. Julien accelerated hard. Gunshots rang against the pavement. The SUV fishtailed through the rain-slick streets. Lucien looked seconds away from fainting. Mark meanwhile grinned wildly. I haven't had this much excitement since that casino fire in Marseille. Alina stared at him. There was a casino fire. You never ask about my hobbies. Julien took a dangerous turn. Can someone explain why armed men are chasing you? Long story. I'm driving during gunfire. I think I deserve the short version. Alina clutched the letters tightly. My mother was murdered. Julien's expression changed instantly. And now whoever killed her wants these. He glanced briefly at the envelopes. Recognition flashed across his face. You found the letters. The SUV went silent. Alina slowly turned toward him. How do you know about them? Julien realized his mistake too late. Rain hammered the windshield while Veridon disappeared behind them into darkness. And somewhere deep within the town, hidden behind locked doors and crimson curtains, members of the Crimson Circle gathered once more. Because Alina Rousseau had returned. And secrets buried for decades were beginning to rise.